want to talk you through how to complete the square with the ellipse problems. To be really clear, the majority of the work here is a lot like the circle, okay? Because we have 2x squared and y squared. The only part that's different is we're now going to have a value outside of x squareds and y squareds that we're going to have to factor out. So step one is rewrite it, grouping together your x squared, your x, and then your y squared and your y. Any whole number value you have, and you probably have some, you're going to add that to the other side. That's a 50, yeah, I'll get that in a minute. First things first, let's go ahead and factor out the 25 from this side, which leaves me with negative 10 here, and the 49 out from this side, and we're going to break that down into negative 6. Once I do that, I'll leave myself a little bit of space here because I know that I'm going to be doing the b over 2 squared, and I'm going to put that in here. However, remember we're inside this parentheses, so whenever I go to put this here, I want to put something over there. I'm going to have to remember that I have to add, well, I have to multiply the 25 times the value out front. Whatever you have in this space here, you have to multiply over, and then you have to add it to both sides. In the second way, or not second way, but the second part, we're going to go ahead and do negative 6 divided by 2 squared, which is going to be negative 3 squared. This is going to give me my negative 9, or positive 9, excuse me. Take 9 times 49, and we're going to add that piece to the other side. Now, actually, I need to fix this piece, because originally it should be 159. Let's correct that in both of those places first, just so I don't make a mistake. Okay. Now that we've got that fixed, we're going to go back in and we're just going to basically factor these pieces into their elements, right? We already kind of know how to do this. We're going to bring the 25 down. I look right here, and then I'm going to bring this number down here. The variable that I'm working on, that just kind of transfers down. Same thing for this. I'm going to bring that over, and then I'm going to combine all values here and get a certain number. Now, here's something that's very different than the other ones. Whenever you're working with the ellipse, it's always equal to 1. You can see all the way down the line here and over here and so forth. So you take the value that you end up with, and you're going to divide all 3 terms by whatever that number is. Okay? Generally, if I did 1225 divided by 25, I got 49. And if I do the same thing, 1225 divided by 49, I get 20. It's actually 1 over 25, so they're just basically telling you what should end up in the denominator. Once I complete that, I end up getting the solution here, and I can find that possibility here. Be really careful. These look extremely similar. Double check to make sure that you've got the right values down. Okay? Now, I'm going to reproduce this process 4 times. Right? I'm not going to bore you with me discussing every instance of the step. So, take it a minute, and we'll do one more, and then I'm going to kind of fast forward the other 2 and put some music or something behind it so you can watch and see how it happens. Again, group them together and then factor out the 4. Right? And I kind of did this 2 steps at a time. Here we had a 9 in front of the y squared, so factored out the 9. And then the negative 316 over here, I want to take negative 8 divided by 2, which is 4. 4 squared is 16. And then we're going to take negative 16 divided by 2 is 8. 64 times 9, and then 16 times 4. So 16 times 4 is 64. And then 9 times, yeah, I'll fix that too. Doing this too fast. 4 times x minus 4 squared plus 9 times y minus 8 squared. Now I'm going to combine all of these things right here once I correct that number, and then I'm going to get the value that ends up on this side. I believe that was 5 something or other. Let's see. There we go, 576. Combine all these values together. Make sure to remember that this one is negative. That happens a lot of the time, so be prepared for that. I'm going to take this, and again, I'm going to go ahead and divide that number by each individual part. Generally speaking, these numbers up top will divide into the bottom number most of the time to be a whole number. So you'll end up with 1 on the top and then whatever you have out here. The way I do that is just take the bottom number, 324, divided by 4, and that tells me what number to put on the bottom. I'll do the same thing on this side. I'll take 324, I'll divide it by 9, and that'll tell me it's 36. And then when I'm done, I go back up to the top, I look for the correct possibilities. I tend to eliminate any one that I can see instantly that's wrong, and I go from there. I hope this helped. Check the other two out. I'm going to kind of speed those up a little bit so you can see how it works. I want to, before I do 5 and 6, I want to go in and I want to do a little bit of graphing just to kind of give you an idea of how I think about these kinds of problems. So what I'm going to do is over here on the side, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to sketch this ellipse and just talk about some of the things that are really important to keep in mind when you're finding the graph or any of these elements that we're going to be looking at. And so, first of all, I'm going to go ahead and graph out some of the pieces. So we can talk about the center, since that's really the easiest thing to find. This is, if you think back to how we did it with the parabola, this is exactly how we did it last time, except now we're going to call this the center because it's not just a single-sided point. It's going to be the ellipse is like a stretched circle, okay? And so we have a center of -10 and -5. And so we're going to sketch that, real rough sketch. So we're way down in the third quadrant somewhere. So we're going to go over, so there's 5, there's -10, and then this will be a -5 here. So I'm going to sketch that value there. This is what we're going to consider the center of my ellipse. Now, things to note, that in the ellipse, you have values in the bottom, right? You have 36 and you have 100. And so the question is, does this parabola look vertical? Is the major axis, which is the longer axis, does that run up and down? Or does the major axis kind of run side to side? The way you determine this is you look at your equation, right? And I want to find the larger of these two values, okay? In the ellipse, the larger of the two numbers is a squared, okay? So in this case, my a squared is going to be 100, or a is 10, and my b squared is going to be 36, which means b is 6. I need to know a and b in order to graph these things and to find some of the elements down here, right? So I'm going to write that down, but I still am debating between which of the two ellipses, am I going to have to work with. And because the a squared value falls underneath the y squared, then the major axis is going to run in the direction of that axis, right? So we're dealing with an axis that looks, a major axis runs like this. The minor axis, which is the shorter of the two, runs like the x-axis, because the b, which is related to the minor axis, and a, which is related to the major axis. That's telling you which direction it's going to move. Okay, so with knowing that, if you haven't downloaded the formula sheet, that's definitely going to help out in finding out these elements. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to place down the vertices and the co-vertices, but first, I want to write down what a, in this case, a is going to be 10, B is going to be 6. Now, C, which this is the distance from the center to the focus, or the foci, if you're talking about both of them at the same time. So, in the ellipse, we have a squared minus b squared equals c squared. Notice this is not the Pythagorean theorem. One thing that I tend to note to help myself remember it is the symbol here, which is plus, is not the symbol here. These two are opposite signs. Okay, in the hyperbola, which is the thing we study next, these signs are also opposite, right? This is going to be a plus, this will be a minus, right? So make sure that these two symbols don't ever match. Okay, next, let's go ahead and we'll find C first, right? We're going to say 100 minus 36. This is going to be equal to 64. So C is going to be 8. Remember, that's equal to C squared. So this is really nice to have whole number values. I'm going to use this. Remember, this is to do with the vertices. This is the co-vertices. And this is to deal with the foci. I'm going to use these values, and I'm going to go that distance away from the center to find these points. Now remember, major axis goes up and down. So my vertices are going to be going up and down. My minor is going to be going left and right. And we know that, remember, by looking over here at the equation and looking for the larger values, knowing where A is and where B is. So let's graph these now. So I'm going to use 10. I'm going to go up 10. Right? So we're going to go all the way up here to positive 5. I'm going to put a vertex here, so we'll call that vertex 1. And then I'm going to go down another 10. Let's see, that's about right. Give or take a little bit. This is not done to scale, obviously. Let's see. So this would be vertex 2. Now, let's go ahead and write these coordinates out. I know this is going to be negative 10. And I went from negative 5 from the center point here. And I went up 10 units, right? So I went up to, that would be 5 units here, 5 here, and then 5 more, which puts me at positive 5 on the y-axis. And if I do the same thing for the second vertex, I know that I'm at negative 10 on the x-axis. And I went down 10, so I'm going to go negative 5 minus another 10, so it's negative 15 on the other vertex. Now let's do the same thing with B to find the co-vertices. So I'm going to go back about 6 steps this way. That's going to leave me at, if I was at, let's see, negative 10 here, and I go back 6 this way, it's going to put me back here at negative 4. So we'll have negative 4 comma negative 5. We know that these are all on the same horizontal line right here. So I know that's going to be the same y value as my center. Alright, I'm going to go over again. I'm going to do the same direction on this side, try to get as close as I can. And now I know that I went 6 units from here out this way, right? So we're looking at using V. So negative 10 minus 6, because you're going left, it's going to take me out to negative 16. So this is going to be negative 16 comma negative 5. This is going to be co-vertex 1, 2. Now, at this point, I really do have enough to draw my ellipse. These are kind of hard to draw. At least very accurately, they're hard to draw. They should be really symmetric, and don't worry too much about how accurate. Now, I don't have a graph. If you have graph paper here, definitely do that. Next time I do this, I'm going to make sure I have graph paper in the background, but you'll get the idea. Okay, so I've got it drawn. Now I need to put down my foci. Now, the focus is typically one of the harder things to do. This one's nice because I have a whole number value for C. That typically doesn't happen. Usually you have square roots involved. And at that point, you can get a rough estimate. As long as your coordinates look good, where you place it on the x-axis or the graph will just kind of go with your coordinates as long as it's fairly accurate. So I'm going to go from the center. Now notice the focus and the vertices. The focus and the vertices are all on the same axis. Right? So they're on the major axis. B, the co-vertices, they're all by themselves, right? So A and C go together, and B's alone. So I'm going to go up and down 8 from the center to place the focus. Right? So if I go up 5 here, and I'm going to go up another 3 and put that there. That's going to be the coordinate negative 10, positive 3. That'll be focus 1. Now, I'm putting 1s and 2s on this just to indicate that there are 2 of them. But here again, it does not matter if you even put a 1 or 2, just so long as I know what your vertices are, what your co-vertices are. And in this example here, it's really easy. It's multiple choice, but you'll get the idea. I'm going to go down 8 this time. So if I go down 8, I'll end up in about the same position, just on the other side. So -5 plus, or -5 minus 8 is going to put me down at -13. So I'm still at, so this will be focus 2. This is going to be -10 and -13. And that's how you'd graph it all. Now, I've inadvertently solved this problem by simply putting it on paper. I wanted to do this in 2 ways. I wanted to show you how to do it graphically. I know that if you find A, B, and HK, and you know how to find C by using this formula, none of this is necessary if you downloaded the formula sheet that I gave to you on Classroom. That allows you to simply plug in the right things and get it out. The one thing you really need to do is to figure this out. And that's really easy to look at which one it is. Remember, A squared is always larger. If you can remember that, that'll tell you which formula to choose, right? Whether A goes under here or A goes under there, because they will generate 2 different kinds of graphs. The ellipse that looks like the one we have here, where the A squared is under the Y, or the one with a wider ellipse with inversions of the major axis is going to run horizontally. Now, if I kind of go over here and just figure out which ones I'm looking at, I know that in order to identify the center, right, it's really just like the vertices. We're going to basically be taking the opposites. So I need x to be -10 and y to be -5. So that one works. Let's mark a few of these off. This one is out. -10, -5, -2. The rest of them tend to work. Let's see if we can mark out some of those. Vertices, we had vertices over here at -10, 5, and -10, -15. Right, so that one's good. Let's look at the co-vertices. -4, -5, and -16, -5. Oh, those are good. And foci is -10, 3, and -10. So yeah, check. So this one all checks out. So the answer ends up being A. Okay, now I'm going to take a different approach with number 6. Let's try the formulas. We now, I'm assuming you're looking at the formula sheet. I'm not going to pull it up. Right, you have access to it. You can just be looking along on your own copy. I'm going to go ahead and figure out, is this major axis, is it vertical or is it horizontal? Because that's going to determine which set of formulas I'm going to focus on. I look down here, I find out the largest value is 81. Right, this is what our A squared is. It's under the Y value. So we know that the major axis is going to be getting vertical major axis. Okay, so on the formula sheet, that's our first set of formulas, right? Let's go ahead and write out a few of these items. We know that the center, that's the easiest one to find. That's going to be 5 and 1, right? So I can go in and I can eliminate any choices that don't have that as a possibility. That's what I would do first, right? Especially if it's being multiple choice. The second thing would be to find vertices, right? In this example, A is 9, B is 4. We'll hold off on finding C in just a second. It looks like I'm going to have some square roots, but we'll go through it just in case. Let's find my vertices. Remember, the vertices are going to be H, comma, K plus and minus A. So if I do that, I know it's going to have a 5x coordinate. And if I do K, remember K, in this case is 1. So K plus 9 is 10, and K, okay, and K minus 1, so we're going to have 1 minus 9 is -8. And so I look down my vertices, 5, 10, 5, -8. At that point, we already know that B is the answer because it has the only one that has the correct vertices. These vertices aren't even close, right? Now, which is great for a multiple choice test. These are some really nice, tricky things that you can do. But let's keep going just in case this was open-ended and you had to kind of work it all the way out. Let's do co-vertices now. So co-vertices, this is going to be h plus and minus b, comma, k. Well, actually, those aren't even on your formula sheet, so you might want to write those down. Interesting. Let's go ahead and label these out. So we're going to take our h and we're going to add b to it. So 4 plus 5 is going to be 9, comma, k, which is 1. And then this time we'll do 5 minus 4, which would be 1, comma, 1. Okay, so just if you didn't catch that, you've got this little formula. Well, let's put it in blue. This is our formula for our co-vertices right in there. Make sure you write that down. That's not on your formula sheet. Obviously, if you switch it around, these two formulas that we have for vertices and co-vertices, these two are actually going to flip-flop. You'll notice that on, well, sort of. You'll notice it because that one formula is not there. Let's go ahead and find the foci. I'm gonna find c first, right? So we're gonna have 9 squared minus 4 squared, so 81 minus 16. 81 minus 16 is going to be a 65, and this is where we're going to see how a square root is going to happen. If you look at your formula sheet, you know that the foci for this problem is going to be h, comma, k plus and minus c. Now, I want you to pay special attention to how the foci are done. Notice that they don't actually do the addition or the subtraction. They're just going to write it down. So if I wrote it down like this, 5, comma, 1 plus and minus c, which would be the square root of 65, right? This is c squared. That's it. And you're perfectly welcome to write it just like this. Here I'm combining the plus and the minus into one form. Here they've broken it apart into two. I'm okay with you doing 81. And that's how I would basically find the foci, right? So remember, vertices, co-vertices, foci, right? So vertices, co-vertices, and foci. And that's how you would kind of get down to this. Okay, I hope that was somewhat helpful. I know that that's a lot to take in, and practice will definitely make this a lot easier to do as time goes on. Right now, we're really just working with the formulas and completing the square. We'll do some graphing later on. I kind of gave you a little bit of a preview over here about how graphing is. If you understood this mess right here, then graphing it is going to be just as easy, because it doesn't matter which way it works out as long as you understand what number goes with which piece. Hope that helped. Have a great day.